is very comfortable with this medium. So, if you're gonna fish, you got to go throw a line in the water where there's fish. And if you're going to communicate with soldiers these days, based on the cohort, you're going to have to engage in this medium. So, from a practical standpoint, I would say it'd be kind of ignorant not to use this forum to talk to your soldiers. Second is soldiers tend to be very candid in this forum, and that's very useful to me. If they meet me face to face, they're somewhat inhibited by the fact they're talking to a general. But when I'm not physically present, but present in the blogosphere, they tend to be a lot more candid, and that's what I need. I have no problem engaging soldiers directly on the facts, but we can't get to that if they're inhibited by talking to me. So I have encouraged and will continue to encourage soldiers to use this medium as one of many mediums that they can use to communicate with their soldiers.
Okay, thank you. Next question.
Hey, sir. My name is Bob Michael from a blog called the Mudville Gazette. One, thank you for taking the time out. Very much appreciated. In addition to that little data point, I'm currently a retired guy as of the 1st of April. But I want to say I spent 2007 as a small part of Task Force Marne, your predecessor there in Baghdad. Saw the news recently. My first question, I got a couple if there's time. The expansion of Multinational Division Center. If you could address that and the significance of that in the progress that's going on over in Iraq.
Sure. And Bob, thanks for your service. You guys, the Rock of the Marne, really set us up for success. So thanks to you and all your buddies there that did that. As you know, the area was much more secure when we arrived than what you had to live through in 2006-07. What we have done is expand to become Multinational Division South. So we actually have responsibility for all 9 southern provinces, whereas the original MND Center really was focused on the southern belts of Baghdad, some of Wasat province, and a little bit of Diwania and Babel. We now have 9 provinces all the way down to the Kuwait border, to the east of the Iranian border, and it's a significantly larger battle space. The good news is the Iraqi Army and the Iraqi police are making great progress. The number of attacks against the division have continued to dwindle down to where we're about 1 a day average. We still have soldiers getting injured and killed, but it's significantly better than it was even a year ago. And we've just now concluded provincial elections, and those new governments have been seated, and new governors and provincial councils have been selected. One of the things I'm seeing is that the people that were selected to government comprise a lot of educated people, and that's different from the ideologues that were there before. So very optimistic about the future in southern Iraq, and I think things are heading the right direction there.
Thank you, sir. I got a follow-up on that one. The significant portion of the belts directly south of Baghdad, and I hope most folks here are familiar with that geography, but of course the Sons of Iraq program that was established at the time we were there. Great progress, great strides forward have been made with that program, but still the many reports and many folks are speculating that that's still the long pole. That's still the potential for failure exists within the Sons of Iraq program. I'm sure you're familiar with some of that information. Anything you could do to address that concern or give us a brief update on Sons of Iraq and how the transition to Iraqi government control is going there. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. The southern belts, when we talk about that, obviously we mean the Mahmudiyya Qaeda and the Madain Qaeda, which are both parts of the Baghdad province. Inside that Mahmudiyya, Lutefiya, Yusufiya, formerly known as the Triangle of Death. I lost 52 soldiers there from 2nd Brigade of the 101st and 54 soldiers from 2nd Brigade of the 10th Mountain Division over 2 years, and over 500 wounded in that area. In the subsequent year, when 3rd Brigade of the 101st was there, we lost 1 soldier. And the only thing that changed was the Sons of Iraq. So I am fully aware of the importance of that program. We're in the process of transferring that to the government of Iraq. It is proceeding, I wouldn't say well, it is going on. They are paying the Sons of Iraq. They've been late on a couple of payments, but when that's occurred, we have stepped in and made sure the payments were made. It still remains a possible flashpoint for a return to violence, but we watch that very carefully, and we're not going to allow that to happen We do have to work the Iraqi government very hard to make these payments, and I believe that they will do so, even if a little late. But you can be sure that we're looking after that. And to date, we've not had any issues that have spilled over into violence. The area is still very secure at this point.
Thank you, General. Next question.
Sir, Bob King from the Army Command and General Staff College. The problem is that we need to institutionalize this with Army regulations. You get it, General Caldwell gets it, General Casey, General Corelli get it, but there's a lot of folks that aren't doing it because they don't feel they have the top cover of the regulations, and there's soldiers that are out there afraid to do it because they don't have regulations that say they can, so it's very personality dependent. What do you suggest, or what can be done as far as institutionalizing it so that these programs don't end when the people that get it leave those commands?
You know, it's a great observation, and I could probably make it on almost anything that's innovative. It's Army regulations and procedures, as you know, tend to lag behind innovation. And I think what we just need to do is put some pressure on the institution to make the changes that are necessary. Now, in defense of the people that are trying to hold the line, I think there is some legitimate concern about information assurance and that we don't have our networks compromised and bad things happen. Just this year, as you know, DOD was hacked pretty hard, and as a result, we lost some capabilities. So I think what we have to do is balance this new and a very effective communication medium against the institution's legitimate concerns for security, and we're just going to have to work this very specifically to get the regulations modified so that people can do this.
General, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. This will be sort of like a visual blog here. What keeps you awake at night?
What currently keeps me awake at night is an accidental collision with the Iranians along our border. As you know, the relationships between our two countries are not necessarily the best, but my units are actively engaged with training the border enforcement of the Iraqi security forces, and so that puts us in somewhat of proximity to the Iranian forces. The Iranians have continued to engage in supporting lethal aid to Shia extremist groups in Iraq, and we know that their public pronouncements certainly have not been helpful. And what I would not like to see happen is a accidental collision between our forces along the border that resulted in gunfire and escalated. So that does keep me awake at night. We do a lot to ensure that we have good procedures in place. But along any tense border, that's always a possibility. We seek to make it a very low probability.
Thank you, General. Next question.
Sir, Colonel Will Costantini. I'm an active duty Marine officer. In 2004, I served in the western part of Iraq for the most part, and our battalion task force took about 10% casualties, which is probably low for the 1st Marine Division at that time. My son served over there as a reservist and just returned in October of 2008. Served in the same area that our battalion did, and his company took 0 casualties, and their battalion task force, I don't think, took any either. 2 questions for you. One, well, when my son came home, he told me that the war in western Iraq is over. That made me feel good in some ways, but it's nervous in another way, and I'm wondering, is there an internal information campaign within the force so that people understand that we're still in the fight over there? Is that a problem for you on the ground there? And then second thing, I command a unit in Quantico now, and I can get Marines to re-enlist if they know they're going to go to Afghanistan because there's a war going on. They won't re-enlist to go to Iraq because they also think the war is over. I'm wondering if you have any sense of that as well.
Hey, Will, that's a great question. It's also a very interesting observation. This is one of those, pardon me, this is one of those things where the war has and always will look different depending on where your position is in the war.